Hey guys, Steve at Recruit Ops, and last episode we covered how to prepare for and how to execute a phone conversation, a phone interview. This week we're going to cover on-sites. It's a little different, but a little bit the same. So a lot of the information that we covered in the previous video was really focused on research, planning, and writing things down. You're going to want to do the same thing for an on-site visit. So refresh yourself with those mission and values. Refresh yourself over the notes that you took, if you did your homework, on the last interview, okay? Now, you only get one chance, right? You get one chance to make a good first impression. So remember, whether male, female, whatever the case is, if you're going in for an interview, regardless of your position that you're interviewing for, dress professionally. But because it is a healthcare environment, try not to wear any cologne, any perfume, not too much jewelry, men or women. It's an interview, not a club date. So make sure you're focused on being mindful of what you're wearing. And the reason is this: we want them focused on what you're saying and not what you're wearing. Okay? Now, on time is 10 minutes early. I used to hate hearing that, but it's the truth. So the night before, what you want to do is make sure that you've planned out your route to the facility. Make sure that you want to know how long it's going to take you to get there, because again, on time is 10 minutes early. Showing up at the time of your appointment is wrong. Being 30 minutes or 20 minutes early, just as bad. Kind of makes you look desperate. So make sure you're on time, and that's 10 minutes early. Now again, when you're planning the time that it's going to take you to get there, factor in the size of the facility. If you're interviewing in a critical access hospital with 25 beds, it's going to be a walk in the front door where human resources is probably right there on your right or left. When you're talking about larger hospitals, it can take you 10 minutes just to get to human resources, to figure out where you're going. Parking. Do you have to take a tram to get there? So keep these things in mind. Now, once you arrive, the same principles are going to apply. Engage the interviewer directly. How long have you been at the facility? How did you end up working here? How did you end up in Florida, right? These are important questions because what we're looking to do is develop a rapport. Just like being in an airport and sitting in a bar and meeting somebody and striking up a conversation, that's all this is a conversation. You're a professional as a nurse or a doctor or a therapist or a tech, whatever the case is, you're a healthcare professional. And the human resources people, their job is to help make decisions. But typically the final decision maker is going to be the people you meet on the floor. So usually what's going to happen on an on-site visit is you're going to walk in, meet with the recruiter, human resource liaison, whatever the case is, and they're going to walk you to whatever floor you're going to be interviewing on. Usually what happens is the first person you're going to meet with is the director, the assistant director, the clinical leader, whatever name they choose to call it, and you guys are going to sit down and start having a conversation. Now, if you did your homework like you were supposed to, you've already written down awesome things about you. You've already written down questions, right? Those same questions are still going to apply because you're asking the same questions to a different person now, so you're going to get different answers. Make sure with the director, when they ask you to tell them about you, share your story. I cannot emphasize that enough. Lots of people are concerned about how many patients am I carrying? What shift am I going to be on? How much money am I going to make? What are my benefits? Things like that. And those are all important, but those are all moot if you're not going to get the job. So focus on what helps you put your best foot forward, and that's sharing who you are as a healthcare professional and why you became a healthcare professional. Moving through the conversation, it's going to be a back and forth. Remember that. Remember to keep them involved. Pay attention. If you feel like you've been talking for more than a minute or a minute and a half, stop talking, take a breath, take a drink, and ask them a question to keep them involved. Does that make sense? Okay. So, as you continue to move through the conversation, the next thing that's going to come up is, again, why are you looking for a position? Why are you leaving your current position? Why did you leave your last position? One thing I want to remind people of is this. Try to keep your answers as succinct and honest as possible, but never badmouth the previous employer. Even if you want to. Even if you want to and you are so disgusted with the place that you left because you felt like your license was in danger, or patients were in danger, whatever the case is, you're leaving because you're looking for more in your career. You're leaving because it's not a good fit for who you are as a healthcare professional. Keep focused on that. Now, termination. This comes up a lot too. If you've ever been fired from a job, that's okay. It's not ideal, but it's okay, and they hear it all the time. If you've ever been fired from a position, be honest. Honesty is always the best policy. You can't start out a relationship lying, right? So if they ask you and you tell them, I was terminated for X and here's why, be prepared to answer those questions. So maybe for those of you who've lost a position through termination or layoff or whatever the case is, when you're doing your preparation, write down how you're going to answer so you don't get stuck. That's the worst, is when somebody asks you a question and you are searching for an answer that you already have but you're uncomfortable to give. So write that down. Okay. So as you continue to move forward, again, compensation is going to come up, but it probably won't come up with the director. Okay. If they happen to ask, though, just remember, first rule negotiating, first one to throw out a number loses. If they ask you, your response is what? I'm open to any reasonable offer. Okay? Now, the next step after you have that initial conversation with the director is usually a tour of the unit. So grab your notebook, walk with them, ask them questions. Tell me about the culture on your team. Tell me about your management style. A lot of people forget to ask that. I'm not a person who can be micromanaged, and anybody watching this that's ever worked with me will absolutely know that. I don't like to be micromanaged, and I don't like to micromanage people. So if you're not somebody who's comfortable doing that, and you've got a director who says, you know what, I micromanage everything that happens on a consistent basis, that might not be a good spot for you. Vice versa, if you're somebody who needs micromanagement and you've got somebody who just lets you run and do your job, again, it might not be a good fit. So definitely a question to ask and think about. Another thing that I always suggest people ask, how's your turnover? It's a question that's important because if you're on a floor that has, or in a unit or a facility or a private practice that has a super high turnover rate, there's a reason that's there. That usually lends itself to, honestly, it leads itself to management typically. So not a bad question to ask. The next step in your interview process is typically going to be meeting with the team. You're going to meet with a couple of people on the floor who work it on a day-to-day basis. Ask them the exact same questions you asked the HR recruiter and the director. What we're looking for is continuity of answers. Okay? Ask them about the culture. Ask them about the management style. Ask them about the number of patients. Ask them about growth opportunities and potential. Ask them about support, right? Sometimes what we find is that the answers you get from a director or a human resources recruiter who doesn't work on the floor will be different. But the people who work in the trench every single day, who deal with the patients and change the Foleys and empty the bags and hang the IVs, they know what's going on. So ask them. Now, as you move throughout your interview, make sure that you are asking for contact information, business cards, from the director and the human resources people. Typically floor nurses or therapists or techs won't have those. As you complete each interview section, always thank them for their time. They are busy people just like you are, and their time is valuable because you know how hard it is for nurses to get any time away from patients today. So always thank them for their time because it is important. Now, once you leave, best thing you can do, get in your car, turn on your air conditioning or heater, depending on which part of the country you're in, take a big deep breath, and call the recruiter that you're working with. Share with them how you think and felt that it went. Because what's going to happen after that is we're going to have that exact same conversation with the client. We're going to ask them what their thoughts and feelings were, and then we're going to call you back and we're going to share all that information with you. Once you get home, take out those business cards, and what you want to do is you want to write an email to each individual person thanking them for their time and expressing your excitement, interest, whatever the case is, in the opportunity. Now, I'm gonna add an addendum to this. Most hospitals will not extend an offer on site. Most of them won't. So at the end of the interview with the human resources people and the director, not so much the staff on the floor, what you want to do if you don't get an offer is they're eventually going to ask you, do you have any other questions for us? And that's going to be towards the end. If you like what you've heard, here's what you say. You know what? Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm really interested in the opportunity. Where do we go from here? Or what are the next steps for me? These are what we call buying questions, right? It shows that you are interested. Now, let's just say you get an offer, and it's an offer you love. Accept it on the spot. If you're getting exactly what you're asking for, accept that position on the spot, okay? If not, if you get an offer that you need to think about, if you get an offer that's a little lower than you thought it might have been, thank them for the offer. Don't say no, right? This is just where the conversation starts on our side. Thank them for the offer. You know what? Give me 24 to 48 hours to think about it. That's professional, and that's okay. So that's really the best way to handle an on-site interview. There's other bits and pieces that go into that, but to keep from boring you to death with all the minutia of that, give us a call. Let's talk about that, right? Leave a comment, ask a question at the bottom of the video, and we'll get right back to you. But again, Steve at Recruit Ops, and we're interested to hear what your story is. Thanks.